I got my key in the car.
Do you have your keys?
I got my key.
Okay.
I also got to sign in. Huh? Oh. I didn't actually sign me in. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I heard what you
Oh.
said.
Just take it.
It will be like 10. He's doing a video like this here.
So, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
You agree?
at times I agree, yeah. There's usually one that goes from this week to next week, and then there'll be one in that week that goes to next week. It's not, it just, it's not home. That is.
All right.
It tends to
So
happen.
far, how you doing?
I'm doing very
The
well.
good messages.
She's walking again.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
I told her on Monday, she told me to
Still can't cancel. Look left there, huh?
You got the car key in your pocket?
Oh, there it is.
You got the car key in your
It's
pocket?
dirty.
Huh?
I'm looking for the green.
Got the car key in the pocket. Your pocket.
You didn't bring them?
How do you think we got here?
I got it.
Almost finished.
I was just checking this. Somebody might have to walk home.
Won't be me.
They could drive you home if your keys got locked in the car.
Oh, then I gotta get logs. I expected his to not have any, and I got the keys and I can't drive. Put that there.
I'm gonna have a bunch of phone calls.
Did you sign when you came in?
Actually, I signed in when I went out. So I came back in.
I do too. Short term, long term?
Senior moment.
We'll go with that.
What am I doing? Yes, me. I got one beer.
What's that?
I got one beer. Somebody beer walk in. Right. Yeah.
My friend did it. I didn't on this thing, but.
No. It's not available. Because we're not talking to any phones. All on the phone.
Sorry.
Who's done this? That guy must have.
It's just some giveaway stuff, so if you want, it's just some toiletry items. Also have socks. Socks and socks that are just giveaways.
Oh, the tubs, yeah.
Oh, the tubs, yeah, have the tubs, sorry.
Yeah, I don't think that's left on our property. Pretty much usually for some gatherers like troughs and stuff, so. How many?
I love that. I
Usually run it, right? Oh, yeah.
I got two, and
I
then,
use it for one. I use it for gardening, and then I use it for one days because I it's about to get planted, so. Let it sat for a while.
yeah, I'll watch the tub, make sure you don't walk out with it.
Yeah.
What, oh, that, I see that.
Call this special meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Just please believe it.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Trustee Morgan,
Here.
Neil,
Here.
Mayor Long.
Here. Welcome guests. As you know, this time we got 3 minutes to address anything on the agenda.
I'll speak, just to get started. For those who don't know me, my name is Mike Albert, a longtime member of the Coyle Fire Department, 20 years in April 1st of this year. I served as chief for 6 years. I just want to say that a lot of things on this agenda could have been settled with just a meeting with the chief of the fire department instead of a special meeting. And as far as the funds go and the audit goes, I, among maybe a couple people in this room, have a lot of knowledge about past audits. And those things could have been also answered and addressed in a different type of setting. And I hope that here tonight we can answer all the questions and get down to the truth about what's going on with all of the questions on this agenda. So hopefully we'll all be able to be heard and get the answers you guys are looking for.
Anything else? Okay. Here's the agenda. Consideration, possible action, May 15th, 2025, special meeting. Discussion, volunteer fire department duty, fire department donations, being commingled with handling of the body. I'm married fire department group. You want to go ahead and take it from here?
So, let me start at the top. Okay. Discussion of the Coyle Volunteer Fire Department dues and fire department donations being commingled with or handled by an unrelated fire department auxiliary group, including but not limited to the following topics. Number one, statutes covering use of fire department dues and unrestricted donations. Also, past audit findings, current year unapproved expenditures of fire department funds, a go-forward approval process to accommodate pre-approval of fire department expenditures, perceived or non-perceived relationship between the Coyle Fire Department and the fire department auxiliary group. That was number A. So, there's really two subjects. One being use of fire department funds, and the other, the relationship of the audit with the fire department. Since Mike brought up the audit, each of you guys, I brought you a copy of the 2018 audit. Linda, you have one for the record. This also can be found on the state auditor's website. You just have to Google it if anybody wants to see. It's pretty extensive. I only picked out the items that's relative to what we're discussing today. And I'm going to turn to the key findings page. On the key findings page, as it relates to debit card usage on the fire department. Now, this audit was, I don't know how many years they went back. I just know that it was released about a few months after I was on the on the board of directors. It was released back in 2018. And at that time, the audit department, the only real comments that they made about it was related to not documenting receipts. That was the biggest thing. Or receipts not being present. Well, that's the documentation. What was listed on the donations as being restricted use or unrestricted use. It's just a flat donation to the fire department is an unrestricted use. If it's unrestricted and it's to the fire department, those donations are to be used for the public good. If it's restricted to donations, if they're restricted to firefighter recognition dinner, and if that donation is restricted to fire appreciation dinner, those donations can be used to pay for that fire department appreciation dinner. So as that was the findings. Now there were other issues. And at that time, the fire department was extremely autonomous from the board. And the board was not even on the, if they were on the board, again, the auditor felt, and this is his words, that it maintains a bank account outside the authority, of the town. Not all financial activity of the department was reported to or approved by the board. Now, for those of you who do not, are new to Coyle or whatever, although Coyle is a volunteer fire department, it is organized under the town of Coyle. And the board of directors sitting at this table are responsible for oversight of how the fire department operates. And so that's what it's talking about, the authority of the town. Now, Meridian is a volunteer fire department. Meridian is not a Title 11 fire department, it's a Title 18. A true volunteer fire department that is not located inside an incorporated town. And they have different rules. Can you hold it for a little bit?
Yeah, I just wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. only because we work together and we have different rules that we follow and things like that than we do from you. In that audit, you'll find an introduction of the operating environment that the town, and because the audit did cover the town as well as the fire department. So you have a blurb in here about our type of form of government and the auditor making a statement again that the fire department is a department of the town under authority of the board outlined in statute Title 11. The fire chief and the assistant fire chief answer directly to the board. Yes, we could have just called in, but the three of us cannot sit down at the table unless we're in an open meeting. The only way to have an open meeting is to advertise and post, as we did, 48 hours before a special meeting is held. All of you guys came because you're interested, and that's fine. But that is why we're having this meeting today, because of open meeting records, open meeting acts. And so that's to answer your question. Why we just didn't call Dylan in and the three of us sit down and talk to him. The three of us couldn't talk to him at the same time. Not even two of us could have talked to him at the same time.
Can I ask a question about that?
I don't, it's pretty clear. That's
No.
open meeting act.
So which board member is represented over the department who is, like, one's over PWA, one's over something? There's somebody that is the
No,
director.
we're not. We are all three.
So it's not, I'm just asking for that. I'm just
We're
wanting to
all
clarify.
three. It takes a 2/3 vote on approving all expenditures.
I'm not talking about experience.
Well, or,
How about just have a discussion with an individual?
a quorum is 2. Anytime you have a quorum, you'll be in violation of Open Meeting Act if it is not pre-published and open to the public.
I understand.
So we're following on in this audit, and again, they start talking about the holiday party and food and drinks for a Christmas dinner for the department. It even talks about you in here. It does. I'm sure you've read it many times. And that's under the potential misuse of debit card category, okay? And when you get further back in here, the excuse that everybody uses as to why we needed this auxiliary is because we couldn't, the fire department couldn't have a party, or couldn't go out to dinner. And if you read further into the audit, page 16 is an example, and it talks about, and it's 15, that the only thing those donations had to have been done was designated as fire department recognition dinner. That Mr. Coyle here says he was pretty sure they were made, but there were no record of them. So there was no proof that the donations were restricted to the use for fire department's Christmas dinner recognition, whatever you want to call it. Had they been, and had the receipts been in the books, they go on to say, per the 2001 Attorney General Opinion number 30, the expenditure for the meals and refreshments from the public funds may be allowable if it was for public purchase, or goes on to say over here, however, without proper supporting documentation, this whole audit dinged you guys on the fact that there were no receipts and there were no explanations on what the expenditures were spent for. And so, this is the excuse that I've been given many times over why you need this auxiliary. Is to be able to raise money to spend on you guys however you see fit. So that's what was in this 2018 audit. Then we come along and we have the that was released in February 2018, so it was prior years prior to 2018. So the audit prior in our town financial audit for 2018, again, we got dinged again. And this time it's because we made a donation of public funds, because there's no restrictions placed on how those donations are used. When we donated $500 to the Christian Church shoe charity, when they bought shoes for all of the kids. And I remember, well, we know the town can't do that, but we can be part of the funds. Well, we were dinged on that under the Oklahoma Constitution, Section 10. As noted by our external auditor. And it says Oklahoma Constitution specifies municipalities may not make donations by gift or in any way to a company, association, corporation. The auditor left out or individual. But I have a copy. It's in the Constitution. And the cause and effect, it says here, the town appears to be unaware of the state statutes. Again, I'm glad we're having this open meeting, so that you all understand it's not because we're Grinches. It's because we have statutes and laws that have to be followed. I don't know what the repercussion is. I really don't want to find out. But it says the town appears to be unaware that the state statutes governing the use of public funds. This has contributed to the town making expenditures in conflict with the state constitution. Remediation is I recommend the town educate employees, management, governance of the statutory requirements of the state of Oklahoma to utilize resources or to utilize other resources such as the town attorney or OML for making decisions. And our response was, we agree. But this Oklahoma Constitution, Section 10-17, it's a very short little paragraph. It's only this big. And it says, it's kind of worded strangely, but the last word in the sentence, it's what's going to be applicable to some expenditures that have occurred this year. And it says that legislature shall not authorize any county, subdivision, city, town, incorporated district to become a stockholder in any company, association, corporation, or to obtain or appropriate money for levy any tax, loan its credit to any corporation, association, which is what got us on the donation for the shoes, or individual. So we cannot use any of our funds for individuals. Now, the reason that has been brought up is because it's almost $2,000. And again, this could have been done correctly. when we had our retirement party. And there were expenditures for gifts for the retirees, and expenditures for plates, napkins, for the dinner. And not one penny of any money taken in that night was deposited into the fire department's bank account.
For the retirement, there wasn't any money taken in. It was a retirement party. What was it collected?
Excuse me, you're out of order. I personally paid $40 for my lunch, my family's lunch, which more than covered that cost. And that $40, I didn't think of it at the time, went into the bank account of the fire department. We're not, it is what it is.
We were talking about our own party.
That was the Christmas party that we paid for with our own, everybody
The
donated.
retirement party where we were put on Facebook and congratulated 3 retirees.
There was no cost to that party, it was just a party, nobody paid a fee for that.
In the general ledger that the auditor will see are the gifts for the retirement party
I
and
understand.
supplies for the retirement party.
Mhm.
And there were no monies coming in for that function. So that party bore the expense of the gifts and the plates and it was almost $400 of dinner supplies. I've spoken to our auditor, because I don't have this thing memorized, but it's pretty in my head. And we will take a hit on it in the audit, and it will be disclosed, unless it disappears and goes away and gets reimbursed out of who knows where, which I doubt will ever happen. But we will, and I have been working on an approved, because neither of the gift, none of those were ever approved by this board, which makes it even worse. You can check your minutes, I've checked them.
There was a discussion about the retirement.
But we did not vote,
But we talked about because
we did not know that there would be no deposits.
there was no money brought, I mean, there
And
was.
so all the firemen ate for free, is that what you're telling me?
Everybody did.
Yeah, it was a
And
party.
who paid the caterer?
You're talking about the wrong event. You won't let us explain.
I'm not talking about a Christmas party.
Okay.
There was a discussion about the food being purchased for the retirement party. And it was opened to the public as a public purchase, which we can use the municipal funds for. No, nothing was charged for
Then
that
why
day.
did I pay and no one else paid?
You didn't pay for the
Not for the-
retirement party.
You did not.
You sure you got the?
Was that not catered by Cafe 36?
No, that was the Christmas party. Yeah,
Different.
that the guys paid for out of their
But did
pocket.
we not hand
Hang
out
on
the
now.
gifts? Did we not hand the gifts out at that party?
No, ma'am, that was at the retirement party. That was open to the public. Yeah.
November was the retirement, correct, Carl?
Yeah, so, yeah.
That was where we handed out the gifts to Charles and
Well, the expenditures were made in November. And my problem is there was money paid on the debit card that was not approved by this board. You can, whichever party you want to make it. It doesn't change the fact that the gifts were paid for with the debit card. And this board did not approve those gifts. You can argue about the parties, whatever. They're there. So,
I want to try to understand it, that it's paid for and not been, and we didn't go over there and do it and all. We didn't know anything about this. So, when.
Asked of Lindy to ask your town attorney
if we were allowed to hold this event and spend money, which the attorney never responded, which then we came to the board and ran it by the board, and that's when it happened.
Well, did we have that in the minutes?
There was no motion made on it.
Exactly.
There was a discussion, and it was,
It was a discussion.
the okay was given because it was a
Well, if it was
public event.
given,
But
it should have been in the minutes. And if we voted on it, it should have been in the minutes. And then the same thing that got us back in 2017 is going to get us again. There's no documentation that there was any board approval for those gifts.
Okay.
Does the town currently have an approval process for expenditures?
It will,
So it didn't?
it does. We have always, okay, you explain it to them.
Everything you guys do, you got to bring it to the board. You all know that. You always have. We never have turned you down. But we let you, that you need to. But what the problem is we've got to be able to get it before the board and make sure it's voted on. To where you know what's going on. If it ain't voted on, you didn't have it. That's what's happening here, is what didn't get voted on. And then we're gonna get tagged for it.
But that's what I'm saying, I am working on an approval policy, it's about 6, 7, 8 pages, actually 20 pages, I've got it over here. That'll be part of our, as soon as these guys and Lindy have a chance to go through it, we will approve it. Because previous to that, everybody knows that the board approves expenditures, but evidently it has to be in writing.
Okay, I'm gonna just say,
Someone
behind you.
I will say this, I've been helping with the fire department finance paperwork side for 6 years now. We've never, since I've been helping, been given a policy or told we have to go to the board.
Well, that's
And
unfortunate.
other than like for travel and stuff like that, or large purchases, but our day-to-day,
Your
That's
day-to-day is
all.
one thing.
that's all we've ever been told is
But
just
when you go
spend it, do
make,
what you gotta do.
like big purchases and stuff, like if this debit card bill, it should have been brought to our attention. And it should have been voted on. If that's what,
Yes.
that's what I'm reading from our attorney, it wasn't voted on, that's what these get, it was not voted on. So that's what's gonna have melt us.
Again, we will take the hit. We're not asking you to reimburse the money. I mean, this is, again, a discussion tonight, an open meeting, so that everybody understands how things have got to operate going forward.
Okay,
I did want to make a statement about the audit. The Coyle Fire Department has never operated a Thompson from any of the board members of the board. Just to give you an example, when the Coyle Fire Department had a checking account, that checking account was managed by the Lane McGee, and who was the city clerk at the time, that was held by the city. Everything that was operated in that account went through the city. All expenditures, all deposits were done by Ms. McGee and then the previous or the following clerks up until this audit when they said we couldn't hold the bank account separate from the town.
You still have a bank account separate from the town,
Who does?
the fire department.
A checking account?
Yes, it does. All of your things flow through. We
But
cannot commingle the
the
funds.
town has the account.
And, yes, but it's to the benefit of the fire
Right,
department.
and that's where it lies, I'm just saying. We don't operate a Thompson from the
This
city.
was in 2018. If you want to get more detail, you can go to you can go to the state auditor.
I was there.
All audits, you can request open records.
I was there.
it's,
But we're talking about what happened this past November, not 2018, except they have given us guidance.
But you brought it up, and I'm
I
asking.
am, because this is where we're getting the guidance of what we can and cannot do.
I understand that. But you said we operate autonomously from the
Well, I didn't
board.
say that.
The
The
auditor-
auditor said that.
But I'm just telling
I
people
didn't
that that
talk to
wasn't
the
the
auditor
case.
about this.
Okay. I'm not here to argue, I'm just here to
No.
hear what you got to say. I at least want to be heard about what I
And
have
that's
to say.
fine.
And the
That's
thing is
fine.
that the fire department is here for the community, it's here for the board members, and we have to get to a point to where everyone is on the same page. If you want us to do something a certain way, you have to let us know.
And we are going to. And that's part of what we're going to discuss coming up here.
I'm just saying,
Okay. And just FYI, the auditor on this job is now the state auditor's attorney. So he was fairly respected in that organization, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Anything else? Thank you, sir.
So that kind of covers 1, 2, 3, and we're down to go forward of an approval process to accommodate pre-approval of fire department expenditures. Now, we're talking about the fire department, but just as a side note, the same procedures that we agree on will be applicable to the town as well as the fire department. So you're not going to be picked on. It has to start here and go down to the departments. And they mention it periodically to our, we, generally speaking, we have been able to direct the auditors to minutes evidencing
sit down for a minute.
we have been able to show the auditors in the past where we have board minutes approving these larger purchases and pretty much everything else. And we just don't have them on this one. And so that's that topic. Do you guys have any comments? No. Yeah, I was just gonna say, right here's what I've been working on, covering finance and taxation, that I need to get out to everybody to see if they have it on. Go to the next item. Not B. We still got to go through this perceived, non-perceived relationship with the new auxiliary group. And darn, I hate it when I'm not very observant. But we all know, I think most people in town know, that we have a group in town that has created an auxiliary group. And I had no idea that our annual fundraising dinner was being sponsored by the auxiliary group until I saw the Facebook notification a few days ago. That's the first time we've had an auxiliary group, but it's the first time that the board was aware that the handling of the donations and the money and everything else will be handled by a group of people that is not under the oversight of the board for all of the marketing. And I know from experience, I haven't the last couple of years, but we have approximately $3,000 to $5,000, if not more, collected at that annual fundraiser. That number jumped to $5,000 after we implemented from $2,000, after we implemented internal controls over who counted the money, how it was handled. And the first year that was implemented, we collected $5,000. The prior year was $2,000. People will come into there, and they are going to be, I would have hoped you guys have been marketing our annual fundraiser to our friends in Payne County that are very indebted to you. And I will expect many of those people will be coming in and writing $500 checks. And I expect you'll probably raise another $5,000 this year. And I believe myself personally, as a board member, would be very remiss to allow that money to flow through an account outside of the fire department.
I'm not the same.
Therefore, as overseers of the fire department, we need to discuss tonight, are we going to let the donations be made payable to an auxiliary that we have no control over? How we're gonna handle it?
Okay, well,
Just so that you're aware, we will actually have two separate areas for the money that's collected for the actual dinner and the dessert auction, and another table that's completely separate for fire dues and any donations that they want to give directly to the fire department. The signage at the auxiliary table will be clear that this is for the auxiliary, not directly for the fire department.
Okay.
And the other table will be as well. So Wendy is gonna be the one that is at that table as the town clerk and the town representative. So none of the money that's for the fire department will be handled in any way, shape, or form by anybody in the auxiliary.
Okay. Now, you may think of me as an ogre, or you may think of me as a guardian angel. But you have placed our town clerk in an extreme conflict of interest, who is a director of your auxiliary, as well as an officer of the town of Coyle. And you are expecting her to be the arbiter of funds, which jeopardizes her job with this town. I don't think anybody realizes that, and that's what happened.
I don't understand that.
A conflict of interest is anytime someone has a conflict
I know what
between their
conflict of interest
person,
I don't understand the conflict of interest in this situation.
because she is the one that will handle the cash.
For the town.
And we do not know who the officers are. We know she is the director of the auxiliary.
Mm-hmm.
So she is wearing two hats. And which hat does she choose?
In that instance, it will be of the town clerk treasurer, because that is my first position.
I understand that.
If you,
But it's a conflict of interest.
if anybody on the board wants to sit with her and count the money, they're welcome to do so.
hang on, Kate, let me get these on it. Dusty, hear what you got to say.
I'd just like to know how it potentially jeopardizes her job and where you
Well,
direct.
if a conflict of interest, something's got to give.
Well, we've been through the conflict of interest while I was sitting in that chair, and there is no law that creates a conflict of interest here. Now, unless, of course, you're questioning her morals or, integrity. And if you're directly questioning her integrity in an open meeting, I would
What we're
strongly
saying,
advise
what
you
we're
to
saying
report that.
is she's responsible for the city, and she's also responsible for the Wynn's Auxiliary.
As a director.
And is she not capable of doing that? Because you've,
It is-
one thing happens in this town as well, so have I.
When it comes to finances, that one she will know.
You have something?
I do, and it's about conflicts of interest. Like I said in the beginning, I've served this town as a firefighter for 20 years. I'm also a police officer for 25 years. Even talking about conflicts of interest, you have to pick and choose what you want to do at certain times that you're called to do those things. We're all capable of doing multiple things at multiple times. And it's not a conflict of interest for anybody who wants to serve the community for free on a voluntary basis. How's that a conflict of interest?
Well,
They have nothing to gain personally from it.
I've been looking at a lot of conflict of interest, and the one that comes to mind, you can look at almost every governmental entity and they discuss conflict of interest. But when you place a person in a position or allow a person, it's not questioning her. It's not questioning her morals. It is our responsibility to not put her in that place or allow that to occur with our funds that we're responsible for.
I'm still
I'm
missing
sure
the
you are,
conflict of interest.
and I'll be happy to find more documentation.
So, question, if she's not allowed to do anything outside of being the town treasurer's department,
That's not what we said.
but you're saying conflict of interest, so she took a second job working at a bank that you happen to bank at for this town, is that a conflict of interest?
It would be if she worked on our accounts.
But I'm just
The
asking, would it
bank
be a
will have
conflict of
internal
interest?
controls to prevent conflicts of interest that you're
And
describing.
you guys have internal controls to mitigate these conflicts of interest, am I correct?
That's
I'm
what-
just asking the question.
I told you that we need to discuss how this is going to be handled.
But my next question is, how is the board gonna mitigate a private entity outside of the board's control? How are you
We
guys
can't.
exactly.
And
So
that
then
is,
how can you
and so
build a
how do we have
conflict of interest?
oversight? How do we have oversight over the funds going into that account? To build
From
it into the auxiliary fund?
But it's a private entity, a 501c3,
Okay.
you don't have control.
It's not a 501(c)(3).
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Would you please provide the documentation, because the IRS hadn't caught up with you yet.
Hold on, you can't ask for that legally. Then you need to talk to the attorney.
And that's fine, Mr. Attorney.
No,
We will consult him. However,
It's not gonna be an argument.
Okay, there are websites where you can confirm 501(c)(3)s and 4s, and they are not listed on that website, irs.gov. There's also registrations required with the state of Oklahoma,
As a nonprofit, that's correct.
not as the incorporated status, but as the reporting of not-for-profit charities.
But again, my question was never answered.
Well, because
I-
we haven't had our discussion among ourselves yet.
But the question I asked you still didn't answer was, how are you gonna preside over a private entity when you have no legal authority?
We can't.
That was my question.
Again, I stated in my statement, you put our town clerk in a very difficult position.
And is that opinion or is that backed up by
That
fact?
is an opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, wait, go ahead.
This is related, even though it sounds unrelated.
Okay.
But I was here tonight that you kicked Dusty off of the emergency management because you said it was a conflict of interest. Are you emergency management? Are you mayor? Are you a trustee of the town? How was it conflict of interest for you when it's not for you?
Now, do you see me voting on anything on that? I do not vote, I think on that.
He recuses himself every time the emergency management comes up today. And if Dusty had recused himself, we would never be able to approve anything. So, back to perceived and perception. I cannot confirm, and have not been able to confirm, the registration is a 501(c)(3), a 501(c)(3) or 4, I don't know what it is. Nor the requirement of charities being registered in the state of Oklahoma. So, if you tell me I can't ask for this, I would suggest anybody who considered making these deductions on their tax returns to not do so, unless the IRS recognizes it.
Is that your position as a trustee of the town?
No, that's my personal opinion. Because on your Facebook page, you stated you're a nonprofit, and you stated your business location as our town fire department. Right there on Facebook, your location, 210 East Lewis, Coyle, Oklahoma.
Anybody got anything else? Oh, go ahead.
I can speak on Facebook. I actually helped create that. And at that time, that was the address used because the PO box number had not been assigned yet. And it has not been updated. But there is no official place of business for the auxiliary. It just required an address to try and get an area for advertisement.
Again, this is a meeting of education.
I just wanted to explain why
And
it
I
shows that as
suggest
an
you fix
address.
it, because it leads people to believe that you are associated with the fire department.
It supports the fire department.
But you are not a part of the fire department.
Oh, sure. Can I give you a little backstory on why it was created or asked for?
Yes, please do.
So,
We've been wondering that.
as we discussed, there's a lot of limitations on funding. There's also a lot of limitations on manpower. This group of people decided to come forward, donate their time, their effort, their own money. The first fundraiser they hosted, they donated every piece of supply and hours and hours. They printed off their own flyers, created their own Facebook events to help support the fire department. When we had the big fires, a little over almost 2 months ago,
It was March 14th is when it started.
we came into that fire department and we could come in at any time of day. And there was food on the table or in the fridge, hot or cold. There was drinks in the fridge. The station was clean. We're messy. I'll be honest. We're messy. But you could come in any time of day and you would have food to eat, drinks to drink, and a clean place to sit down. Not only that, we had goodie bags that were donated, egg, and I mean, it was a week of, instead of us trying to figure out how to do it, it was done by the auxiliary, and it was a humongous support. And they gotta have money to be able to help us, but they can't use town money. And there are limitations on stuff like that.
Okay.
All right,
Why?
I mean, I'm gonna take it here for a second, guys. I think that our problem is, what I'm seeing, is we wanna make sure everything's done right.
Agreed.
Your officer or whatever you guys have, make sure the wording says they get what they get, and it's gonna be confusing people out there when they come in.
And a lot of them will bring one check. I
That's
would
what we
see them
don't
pull
want.
this one folded up check out of their breast pocket and sit down and make one check payable, dues, dinner,
And that all goes to the fire department. Simple, I mean, it's cut and dry.
unless they make the checks payable to.
And it's not accepted. I mean, unfortunately.
I understand that.
That's what we're trying to say, we wanna make sure they know, because we don't want no confusion. We wanna keep you guys out of trouble along with us.
Well, may I for a second? The auxiliary's not gonna be in there trying to collect everybody from the door. If somebody comes in and wants to say, I would like to make a $500 donation to your fire department, here. It's not a pissing match back
No,
and forth.
That's what we're going, that's what
But
we
do
don't
you
want.
realize it is our responsibility to oversee the funds coming into the fire department? Yeah, because
I think that our auxiliary speaker made it clear there would be distinct signage.
they did.
Well, when I get to the bank, if I want to go in the lobby, there's distinct signage and one thing that says that's a drive-through. And if I go around there, I can't get in the lobby. I'm at the bank, but I can't get in the lobby. And if there's distinct signage at this meeting, there is a table for the fire department, there's a table for the auxiliary. And so, there's the table. And any check that is written with duty, anything on it has been made clear that it goes to the fire department, even if they want some of it to go to the auxiliary. No, it goes to the fire department.
So why did the auxiliary decide to have a fundraiser beside the fire department in their biggest annual fundraiser?
They're the ones supporting the fire department.
Excuse me, no.
Okay.
So that falls down to manpower yet again. You know, we've got full-time jobs, we're fighting fire. I don't know if you were still there when we had, I don't know, I think it was 3 years ago. We had a reported structure fire happen in the middle of the meeting. Guess what? Serving line got left empty. The only thing we had there was Lindy was taking money. You may have been, I can't remember for sure. It's been several years. But we had nobody there because we were a reported structure fire. We sent it, and
Nobody says you can't have people helping you. You don't have to be an auxiliary to have people helping you.
If they want to organize, what's wrong with that?
Nobody has ever said they couldn't organize.
They are organized.
Okay, hang on, and that's not, you're not gonna argue about this. Go ahead, you know.
I was going to ask just a question, because I've known all you guys for a long time. And I know that you have a personal stake in make sure things get done right. But,
Yeah, it's our reputation, that's the.
right, but my question, aside from Carl, is when have anyone else on the board volunteered to come down to this station and help out with anything, aside from coming to the dinner? Aside from Carl.
I'll be honest.
Well, I know Cole's new, he's lived here long enough.
Yeah.
And,
I really don't think that's, I really want to know how,
Like I said, my personal opinion is my opinion.
I know, I get that.
I can't speak for these days.
right,
I'd say they could do a good help,
yes.
but we got to make sure nothing messes up.
Well, I think it's all
If
about
I'm going in the
communication.
wrong foot, we're in trouble, like that now.
I agree, Howard.
It's all about communication.
I agree.
As long as the lines are clear between fire department dues, any donations to the city for the fire department, if the auxiliary gets a couple bucks from donations, that's great.
okay.
I think as long as the communication's there.
I have a question.
Okay. You know? Okay.
Why didn't you come to the board and say you wanted, that you were going to do this? Why did we have to find out at a pancake dinner when it started saying, make checks payable? Yeah, our chief can address that.
Okay.
That has been brought up at the board several times, even months before Charles resigned. We talked about finding a way for us to spend money on the fire department where we legally can, where we're not bound by statutes and limitations of the law. It is several.
Now, which board are you talking about, our board?
Yes.
And didn't we always say that you have to put the reasons down on your receipts?
That's
and
not what
purpose?
stops us. The statutes.
No, it doesn't.
You can actually depend on stuff if you put it down the right wording.
Well, you can't buy food for the firefighters if it's not open to the public. The auditor even dinged me personally
Yeah.
for spending money
However,
on food for the firefighters. Hold on. For firefighters, because we went out and fought fire for 2 days, and I fed them on the card, and the auditor told me personally that because those funds were earmarked in the city as general funds, we cannot spend those on firefighters for meals. And that's what he told me personally. I spent 4 hours with him on several occasions about this offer. And that's the one thing that always stood out to me, is that we cannot spend fire department money, whether it's donated or for dues, other than what's allowable by law. And the one thing he told me, you cannot spend it on food. And I said, okay, so what are we supposed to do? He said, unless it's earmarked for firefighters' meals, firefighters' parties, you cannot spend that money. And as of today,
That's what you
Right.
come ask, for that money be moved for that.
You can't do
Can't
it.
do
It
that.
has to be
okay,
donated.
guys, here, we're
Yes.
talking about the audit
Yes.
again. And on page 16, he addresses those conversations and how, whatever, I wasn't there. But I can tell you what he entered into the audit that is in the record. And it says, we're talking about this Attorney General about for the purpose of the public good.
right.
Now, you cannot tell me, and I will argue till my face turns blue, that providing nourishment for firefighters fighting a fire is not for the purpose of the public good. But that was not documented. That's what I am
It's the
saying.
wording.
I'm just telling you, I spent more hours on the phone with the auditor than anybody in this room.
I'm sure you did. because
And I
don't
know
even
exactly
get-
what was told to me and how it was conveyed.
I understand it, and you told me you read this.
I have.
And that is what's sticking in your conversations, but he gave you the out documentation and listing what the public good purpose was. They would have been fine.
We're talking about past things, and thing is.
Again, but this is guiding our future. We
Well,
hope
it
we
is,
learn
but-
from our past and don't make the same mistakes twice.
You're saying we need to learn from our past, but I think the board also needs to learn from the past, because everything that was brought forward in that audit had been before previous board members and approved and authorized by board members who are now no longer on this board, and yet we're held accountable for their actions as well as the actions that we move forward with. If we can't figure this out, then what we're coming in and how do we know?
Okay, what you're saying is, if you gotta go out and purchase food.
Or a fire.
Fire department, if you're all on fire. All you gotta do is just make sure you put down that it was purchased for the good of the firefighter. Because they're out on a fire, they got to be fair.
Or ask the attorney how to prove it.
Oh, we will be glad to.
All over the county and ask Troy Coyle about food. He's gonna tell you the same thing we're telling you. You cannot spend money on food. It is state
Okay, I'll
budget.
call her.
I'm just telling
No, I
you.
will call her.
Well, we got figured it out, we need to figure it out.
That's what I'm trying to tell you, what I've been told by county, what we've been told, that unless they come, the person coming in that makes a donation specifically says, I want the fire department to spend this on pizza from Smitty's.
That's true.
That's the only way we can spend that money, and it has to be for that.
Right.
We can't just say, well, it's good
That's all
for
we
the
can
drinkers.
spend, that's all we can spend that pizza money on is for pizza.
Correct, yes.
That's all the money that you can spend.
Yes.
On the, well, unless there's other, well, hopefully they don't put pizza to say food. But anyway,
Hang on.
okay, yes.
Go ahead, Dave.
I understand wanting to make sure there's clear separation. I think we've discussed that, and I love the idea of if one of you guys would like to sit there and make sure.
I
And-
have in the past.
I know you have.
Until I was excluded from several of the meetings that were held. I was never even in meetings were being held.
Our meetings are every other Tuesday.
I'm just saying that no one reached out to say, hey, do you still want to do this or
Apologies on that. But this goes bigger than the food. As I described, goodie bags are all you've used them over the years. You're talking about baby wipes, you're talking about
not?
High drop.
that is stuff that we can't buy either. And that is stuff that this funding helps buy. There was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars spent on stuff like that.
Oh,
That
I-
stuff's outrageous. Chapstick is
Tell me
ridiculous.
about it. I
You
went to-
donated a bunch of eye drops. They bought a bunch of eye drops too.
And
Uh,
chapstick. Because there was a list out there of things you guys needed, and I know how to explain you those things.
And this also is bringing in more help, like I said, and that's,
Fine, you guys can have an auxiliary group. No one is trying to,
well, just this dinner alone,
Thank you.
there's been
Okay.
so many hours invested, donated on planning, purchasing, organizing, advertising,
yeah?
everything that's gone into it.
And every year that has happened, because that's why they've been so successful.
That's happened by the firefighters who have spent the last 2 months fighting fires, recouping and fixing trucks that are still broke down in the station, and we haven't had to deal with that. And we also have no financial burden on this.
Some of these donations coming in at that dinner can help defray the cost of those minor repairs that you can do.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that's, if you save my house, I'd be very generous.
It's just that there is a lot more helping than just buying
Again,
food.
I think you got the misconception. We're not trying to tank your auxiliary. We are trying to disassociate it with the fire department's management, town management, so it is a standalone.
The fire department has absolutely zero to do with it. That is actually legally not allowed to
Thank
be
you.
part of.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying when I see this address here that we're addressed at the fire department.
And-
The wrong perception has been made.
That'll be fixed now.
I'm sure it will.
I have a question. When was the auxiliary group started? Within the last year?
Yeah.
Okay, so, along with this, is growing pains. Okay? Trying to figure things out, trying to make sure all the legalities are right. I'm really involved with the school. Been on the full school, not the school board, but I've been on the foundation. I've been within the athletic department. Not the athletic department, but the boosters. And I give a lot of my time to the school in different areas. So, like Joanne said, we're not trying to attack it, and there's going to be growing pains. And this is part of the reason why we're here tonight, trying to figure these things out. That way we can get rid of the rocks in the road and the potholes before they get too awful big. Okay? A lot of the questions that I had have been answered tonight through various other questions and answers. I think we're going about this in the right direction. We just have to learn to step off the gas pedal a little bit and not be at each other's throats. And I understand. I understand. It's just part of it. But I just want to put my 2 cents in there that I think it's a good idea. I think it's a great thing that you guys are doing. And legally, we're just trying to make sure that we're in our right direction where we need to be. That way, whenever something like this comes up, we don't get dinged. And like you guys know, I'm all new to this. So I don't know what the ding is for what this one is. And like Joanne said earlier, it's our reputations for whenever stuff like this comes out. And I take highly to my reputation around you guys. I mean, all of you know who I am. And you know where I come from. And you know how I was raised. So this is a big deal to me. And I just want to be clear that it is something that I agree with. Just want to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row, all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted. Yep.
I'm sorry. I know I'm here, but I just had a question. Is the one of the problems is the clerk managing both monies for both the auxiliary and the department?
Okay. I don't have anything to do with the finances there. We've got it.
But you are a director.
I'm sorry?
You are a director, and I imagine you're approving expenditures.
I do not vote on anything unless there's a tie.
Okay.
Per bylaws.
Hang on. I'm just like Colton here. I think it's a great idea. I'm told in 2 different ways at it, because I know what the fire department does. I know what it means. I've been there for 44 years. And believe me, it's, for me to sit here and listen is hard. It is real hard. So, I just want to make sure we get it right first time. This is the first.
The auxiliary is happy to come to like one of the regular monthly meetings and give you additional information. We've not been invited to one to speak, and we're happy to do that. So
I think that would
if
be
you want to do that, we
excellent.
can coordinate that.
I think that would be excellent, because as I said, I did not know you guys even existed until the pancake breakfast. And I saw the sign. It said make checks payable. It's something I've always gone to, and they pay it with the Coyle Fire Department. And suddenly, the funds were no longer going to the fire department.
Oh, yes. But when you ask about that, we explained it to you though. Mom was at the table. She
I
spoke to you
understand
first.
she was there.
So, like,
But, you know,
you had the
we
choice
didn't
at that
have,
moment.
it was
to-
more than a 5-minute conversation of information needed. I was there to eat breakfast. I was surprised of the lack of communication to this board.
The auxiliary is not subject to the board, so we didn't have
It's
to make
not,
that
no,
communication.
but you are stepping into something that the board used to oversee.
You oversaw the pancake breakfast?
The funds coming in.
Okay, you don't have to worry about that.
The pancake breakfast that we're doing, this
Well,
now, we did
No,
not
they
spend any
did
money.
pancake breakfast
So
before.
what she's talking about is, that was done by the auxiliary, right?
Yes.
This,
So it's like-
the last two
It wasn't
pancake
done by the
breakfasts.
fire department, it was done by the auxiliary.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. We used to oversee and account for all of the functions of the fire department. And suddenly, the way we handled it before, I guess it's the legwork that you find necessary to have a corporation established to benefit the fire department. Now, I did talk to John Prost. We do know there's a slight distinction between our two organizations. But his auxiliary group operates under their fire department. You guys have chosen not to do that. They do have a separate bank account like you do. But their auxiliary and all the funds are part of their annual audit. Now, I don't know if that's your guys' business to meet the federal requirements for charities and et cetera of having outside audits. But they save the money that would be spent on an audit by them being incorporated into their fire department audit. And the auxiliary makes quarterly reports to the fire department on all monies collected, spent, and bank balances. And he said they have a wonderful relationship because the guys think of something they need like INS or whatever you're talking about. They state it in the fire department meetings. And again, the fire department does have a board of supervisors over them, similar to our functions. So their auxiliary group is overseen by their fire department board. And that auxiliary does provide, like I said, monthly or quarterly reports on how the funds are collected and how they're spent and how they balance.
Is your board elected?
I didn't ask that question. But it's not, it's like he's the chief and he is not on the board. He has other outsiders. Okay.
They're appointed. They're not elected.
By whom?
By community. So typically, a community member who is a past firefighter will be appointed to the board. And then, so as unique as Meridian is, the only way to be a part of Meridian's fire department, you must live or own property within Meridian's fire district. That is no exception. To be on the board, you must live in Meridian's fire district. So they're very unique. Like I said before, they're not a Title 11, Title 18, unincorporated fire department, so they have a little bit different standings than we do as a Title 11 department.
Well, my curiosity is where the Board of Executives, the oversight board, gains its authority because, for instance, this board's authority comes from the fact that they're elected by the community. It sounds like Meridian is appointed by the community.
Well, this board of the auxiliary has appointed directors.
Right, but I'm at, in Meridian, the people that oversee the fire department,
The board.
the board that oversee the fire department, where do they get the authority to oversee the fire department? So the reason you oversee the fire department is because you're the elected town board.
Okay, Title 18 covers them, and I haven't studied it.
Their authority comes from the fire department itself.
But our state statutes governing oversight of that fire department under Title 18.
Go ahead.
I also want to point out, since you brought up Meridian and you talked with Colin, I don't know if you got any notes, that's actually new. Their auxiliary just the last 6 months became under the fire department. For the last 20 years, their auxiliary has been the same as Coyle's. The only reason for including it in the fire department was due to a downfall in participation, volunteers, support, however you want to classify it. People aged out and they weren't doing it.
Well, I
So
see.
the fire department took it over to help boost that, but for 20 years they were successful, completely separate.
Well, he did mention, though, that there's a lot less cost associated with that auxiliary, not meeting the requirements of 501c3's audit requirements.
If they weren't on their own and falling under the fire department, that makes sense, but
But
ours,
it reduces their audit costs and it reduces.
our Coyle's auxiliary is 501c3, so they fall under that category instead of needing to piggyback off the fire
Let me
department.
ask you, are you guys have your own audit done?
we're not required by the law to have an audit done.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We're not required, a 501c3 that makes less than, I think it's 50,000 in a year, is not required to have an audit like you are required to. You can do what we call a self-inflicted audit, which is not as extensive as the audit that you guys go through. But a nonprofit is not required if they fall under a certain range of income per year to have an audit.
You said that was $50,000.
I said, I don't know, it used to be 50, I need to recheck it.
Okay.
So if the income of the auxiliary is less than whatever that cap is right now, it's not required. As far as your statement that have we done everything that is required for a 501c3? Yes, ma'am. There is no filing with the state other than filing with the Secretary of State to become an organization. There are the yearly filings, like taxes, that is required, and those will be done. We didn't have it established for any income to report for 24 taxes.
You have anything else for Coyle? Yeah, learning. Mr. McCracken. Lee. I know both sides here. Like I said,
both sides.
like I said, I got no problem with this, auxiliary. One is to keep, make sure it stays separate. Everything's worded separate. Don't have to call it off. If you need help, call me, I'll help you. But right now,
Well, I am.
we still gotta get
Well,
worded.
you're retired, so you can do that. Tell me my president again.
But, as of right now, we gotta make sure we get the wording, everything right. We don't want you guys in trouble, we don't want to be in trouble. That's all this is about. We don't want simple, nobody's told, or hurt anybody's feelings. If we do, sorry, we just gotta get it right the first time. That's all this is about. Yes, ma'am.
Which one of you is gonna sit at the fire department table Saturday?
Well, this is the first time we heard there are two tables,
Well,
so we will have to find.
First time we've seen
There's you.
I'll tell you what, if I can get back home in time, I got
Well, we
grandkids
have
playing
other-
ball.
One of the firefighters can sit there as well.
Yeah, I will be there. I'm not that privileged. But we need two people sitting at our table. Just one of them. Okay, you can sit there,
Yeah.
but we need one other person with you. That is just the internal controls, handling cash.
I can't sit there?
You could.
Okay. I'll sit there and someone can sit with me.
That's a good idea.
Does that take care of your conflict of interest?
For that dinner, we still need to, as someone suggested, we talk to our attorney. And
We just need to get it clarified, make sure.
we needed to have a better understanding before we went whole hog into attorney fees and everything else. So,
I think everybody knows what's going on now, and knows about how everybody is, where everybody's at. If anybody got any questions right now, please answer, we try to answer. If we can't, we try to get the answer somehow. As a former member of the fire department, I'd love to see that place go better and bigger.
Want to make a statement on it real quick on yours. The whole reason for the auxiliary is to support the fire department. So as far as the funds coming into the auxiliary, yes, they're collected by the auxiliary, an independent organization. But those funds are there to serve the fire department. So anything collected is going to the fire department. It's just more like a discretionary fund that doesn't have the state requirements behind it. So, same thing Johnny said, if these guys need new gear, the auxiliary, they should come to the auxiliary says, yeah, no problem, let's write you a check. If they want to throw a party for a retiring member, the auxiliary says, let us do that for you. So the funds, just so that we're clear, do go to the fire department. It's just filling a gap and a void that the municipality's funding can't fill. So,
It's operating like the Coyle School Foundation.
sorry?
Like the Coyle School Foundation.
It's
I mean, that's
exactly
exactly
the
how,
same
it's just, instead of the school, it's the fire department.
There are government restrictions and requirements on the municipality funding, just like there is on a school,
Absolutely.
that the town cannot fund for the department. So the auxiliary steps in having this bank account. So all the funds that are donated to the auxiliary are still going to the fire department, just to be clear. But that, try to help settle some of that concern.
And you do know, as a previous trustee,
I understand that.
how the board is held
Yeah.
as oversight over the fire department.
Well, that's, I would say as a previous trustee, with that responsibility, I support this wholeheartedly, and can attest that it has been set up correctly. There is a board, it is fully papered. They do have not only, they actually have state and federal guidelines that have to be followed over and above what the municipality does. So I would make the argument that there is more of an onus on that entity being under the state and feds than there would be any kind of guidance or oversight that the town could do.
Okay.
So it's a very safe organization.
Would be just button
I
up.
think so too. Can I make a motion? Got any of those things to say before I make a motion?
I'd like to back up a little bit as we kind of nitpicking the fact that the fire department addresses on there and all of that, but they might think that has to do with the fire department. To go back to where Colton's talking, and I'm not talking bad about it, I'm just saying that Colton is, you've got the foundation, you've got athletic, you've got all kinds, but now there's the booster club. And the booster club is the FFA booster club, but at the same time it's separate. But because it says FFA, people might think that's related to the school.
And it also shares a PO box with the school.
It does. Well, that's their problem, and I'm not doing it. So can I make a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion got second, all in favor?
Aye.
8:15.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
I hope everybody got the question answered. No.
Oh, it's all for you. We can't run. Love you so much. I've heard of how
Okay. But I did figure it out. I did figure it
So every month.
I did remember. I did talk to her about that. That's what I was
And that's an idea.
Are you bringing
They better watch my hand, that's 10 people road.
He's talking about all the places in there. Yeah. I was talking about the
Go back out the road, don't hit my hand.
Well, I did come to a meeting, I didn't know what was going on, but I did.
That's the only pin that.
Yeah, because I even had,
That like is the road.
How long have you been?
You still mowed, you're still marking that.
yeah.
Drone thing.
It's a lot.
Well, I want to start a call.
He said he has a nice policy, that's good. More than that, you know, where you have parts of your face.
Because we cannot use money.
Well, because it's supposed to be hybrid, that's what it's on.
Well, it looks like this side used to do it.
You, like I said, Coyle, story is not mine.
Yeah.
I mean.